Hello everyone, we are Team A1 and our team member is Kim, Felicia, and Irene. This is a video of volcano eruption in Tonga 6 months ago. With the recent climate event that occurred in Tonga, the volcanic eruption followed by the tsunami inundated the island with salt water and volcanic ashes. Their habits has substantially decreased. Many face hunger and a lack of resources around the island. Following the second substantial development goal to end hunger and ensure access, we came up with solutions to stabilize their agricultural economy to withstand climatic events and ensure consistent food supply. Our team came up with building an indoor vertical farm inside a greenhouse that can be protective against disastrous events such as tsunami and volcano. The next slide shows the design of our proposed solution. Geodesic domes with triangle pattern design are deemed stable against the wind and tsunami. The oval-shaped geometry of the dome can reduce the momentum from the winds and the waves. With the dome being transparent, the sunlight is able to pass through and provide nutrients to the plant in the aquaponic system. That way, additional costs to installing LED lights acting as the sunlight are not required. A solution to the fatal effects of excessively high temperature on plants is to use polycarbonate, a material that can withstand high temperature while reflecting UV rays. It is a perfect material for a greenhouse structure as it has a light transmission of 88%. Essentially, this material allows the light to pass through but not the heat. With a simple shape of just irregular triangle patterns, not only is it accessible and simple for the people of Tonga to build, but it is also highly cost efficient.
Inside the geodesic dome is the aquaponics system, a soilless planting technology that utilizes the combination of aquaculture and aquaponics. That is, with fishes as the driving force to growing out and providing nutrition for the plants. Unlike other vertical farming techniques, aquaponics is easy to understand and implement as it mimics a natural ecosystem. The fishes are placed in a separate tank where they are fed in order to produce waste. The waste is then used as fertilizers for growing the plants. The bacteria provides the perfect nutrition for the plants. Through consuming these nutrients, the plants are able to purify the water. The clean water is recirculated back into the fish tank where the cycle starts once again. It is highly environmentally sustainable as it only uses 1/10 of the water needed for soil-based gardening and even lower water consumption than other vertical farming techniques. We aim to have the dome and aquaponics system installed by a professional. The only new technique that needs to be taught to the Tonga people is how to maintain aquaponic technology. They are only required to feed the fish and monitor the air ventilation in the greenhouse. Feeding the fishes and prawns regularly can be easily done by any such as the young, elderly, and disabled. Additionally, aquaponics grows 5 times more food per acre than traditional farming while yielding greater quality in the harvest. With increased quality and quantity, the export rates will see a great incline along with the Tonga economy. In the long term, the Tonga people can even artificially modify the types of harvest inside the aquaponic system and grow crops that are considered impossible if done traditionally in the tropics. We realize that Tonga is frequently affected by cyclones and tsunami waves, and we will make use of these waters. The seawater will be filtered into a lower pH fresh water that can be used in the fish tank. But since the fish tank does not need to be regularly changed, the filtered seawater is instead stored inside a water tank that could be pumped into a fish tank when desired. In the event of overheating or aquaponic tank failure, the backup filtered water is handy. In addition, we have also proposed to install wings-like structures that stay underground when unaffected by cyclones. But once the waves come into contact, the wings will activate to act as a friction to slow down the crashing waves. Overall, through protecting the crucial harvest that defines Tonga's economy, the Tonga people will be able to safely and securely grow out their harvest without the need to worry about losing their crops. The global economy will be more stable with higher demand in its exportation, which will therefore stabilize the agricultural economy and most importantly, ending hunger.
Hello everyone, we are the Meat Loafers team for Team A2. We have many problems in Tonga, but in Tonga, from the Climate Change Knowledge Portal, Tonga experiences on average 1.3 times a year of cyclones, as well as strong winds. And the farms, they are required to be out in the open for optimal plant use and are also exposed to the elements and to extreme weather. So the question is, what happens when the main farms producing most of the food are unavailable? Right now, given that most of Tonga's population live in rural areas with agriculture and fisheries as their main source of food, and in addition to that, the event in January has destroyed their farming capabilities and is still recovering. They are left with just fish as a source of food, mainly. This is also considering that due to the lack of preservation techniques, most previously grown crops will not be suitable for consumption. How we deal with this is via an easily propped up greenhouse structure, almost like a tent, with that an included hydroponic system for alternative crop growth, given that there is electricity requirement. Solar panels are recommended to supplement energy requirements. Here are the key metrics. The components are easy to assemble with crude natural resources like rigid sticks for the stand and reusable polyethylene pipes for the hydroponic system. This product is a great supplement to the food insecurity in Tonga, as well as it may increase the likeliness for marketing of food to be possible in the near future with brand new innovative technology. The key issue that we have is the incremental introduction of method. Of course, we would have to consider how we would integrate this level of change into the lifestyle of Tongan farmers, especially regarding their farming techniques. For our integration methods, to comfortably integrate this into the Tongan lifestyle, we plan to encourage early adoption of the method by the local priests or perhaps the village chief. The reason being that the local priests and village chiefs are majorly respected members of the community, with the majority of the Tongan population being religious. If we introduce this system to the local priests and the local church, there is a high incentive for the local community to follow suit. And with that, there are a total of approximately 18,000 churches to spread the positive influence. For the interested parties, this idea focuses primarily for the Tongan population, unfortunately affected by this situation across all landscapes, considering like mud, clay, or sand. And potentially, we could branch out our proposal to other agricultural focusing countries affected by major farm destruction to assist in disaster relief. For the cost analysis, we have researched the approximate prices of the materials that are included in this product and in the system. And so there is a total cost of $2,700 in full price for each unit of greenhouse plus the hydroponic system and its power source. So including it, we have a portable rollable solar panel for 100 to 200 watt power, and we have aluminium stilt rods for the anti-cyclone or anti-strong wind mechanism, and then we have stainless steel nuts and bolts to reduce rusting, UV lights at night for the hydroponic system. Then we have polyethylene pipes, quite cheap, and it'll be a local supply. And then we have small air pumps for the hydroponic system, and then we have a solar battery as well as a polycarbonate wall for the greenhouse. For the price of these materials, it is possible for the price to be supplemented by donations or through subsidies, where half of the price can be paid by the locals and can be subsidized in the near future. And possibly, it is possible to transfer this technology to farmers in Australia interested in this technology, as well as to increase the GDP produce potentially in Australia. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hi, we're Team Agri-Solvers. We've been tackling the Hackathon Challenge A, addressing SDG 2, Zero Hunger, looking at food security and agriculture in the Pacific Islands. 88% of residents in Tonga live in rural areas and use a mix of subsistence and cash crop production. Agriculture practices are incredibly important to maintaining food security and livelihoods in Tonga. Extreme weather events such as tsunamis and volcanic eruptions have a destructive impact on Tonga's agricultural production, particularly leafy crops and fruit trees. We are proposing a resistant solution that reduces crop damage/loss in order to reduce food insecurity and empower local communities. We are proposing vertical coconut tree farms.
So a case study in India. Local subsistence farmers in regional India face similar food security issues because sometimes they go without food for a long time simply because their crops fail. A solution for this was to build a small greenhouse on their land that where they could grow enough food so that when their crops failed or a disaster happened, the farmer had a safety net of food that they could sell or eat. The vertical coconut farms are a translation of this solution to the Pacific Island context. There's not enough land space for greenhouses, and they would be swept away in the event of a disaster anyway. So instead, we use the only thing that consistently survives natural disasters, which is coconut trees. So why coconut trees? They often survive tsunamis and tidal waves when everything around them is destroyed. And why is this? This is because they have a really strong foundation and are able to resist the forces through flexion. So what does this mean for the vertical coconut farm? We've considered the cantilever beam deflection model as a model for the coconut tree. This describes the relationship between stiffness and weight and the length of the tree or beam. The added weight of the rope and pots would not really impact the tree's ability to flex too drastically, so the farm would still be able to survive a natural disaster. Design. So number one, the planter pots are made from recycled plastic bottles or containers to house leafy green vegetables such as the lettuce. Two, pots are wound around the tree with rope, much like Christmas lights, and the two ends are tied to create a loop. The rope is attached to the tree using open pulleys to allow for movement. Number three, coconut nets. They're a safety element to prevent head injury and premature death. Number four is a pulley system to rotate the hanging planters.
Materials. We're going to utilize materials that are already available as much as possible that are cheap so that they are replaceable and resilient. Incorporating reuse streams where possible. The planter pots made from recycled plastic bottles, pots filled with soil made from compost that is high in organic matter, utilizing the established composting strengths farming household already use. The ropes that are used to wound on the trees are made from coconut fiber, as that is the most widely available in Tonga. Wooden open channel pulleys to allow ease of movement of pots around the tree. They are easy to replace since the setup materials are common. If the system were to be destroyed or aged, it could be easily cut down and replaced.
So how do we really land the idea in the local community? Based on our research, the best way is to get the message across through the local trusted people talking to one another, exactly like the movie Batman. It's that simple. So therefore, we have a pilot group who are trusted people in the community. We show them how to do it and get their buy-in. Then we get the pilot team to show the local community how to install the equipment and how to grow the plants. Word of the mouth is the following story. You may ask why it is feasible for our solution. Firstly, it's easy to learn and adopt. It's free from the labor intensive. It's affordable. And once it's destroyed by a natural disaster, it can be replaced by ours and hit the ground running again.
Vertical coconut tree farming is a way that Pacific Islander nations can ensure consistent food supply for growers and locals and improve their economy and withstand climatic events.
International aid efforts are being ramped up to Tonga. We're 3 days on from that massive undersea volcanic eruption, and the tsunami that followed has cut off nearly all communications to the country.
Tonga has a population of approximately 105,000 people inhabiting 36 of its 176 islands. Due to climate change and its geographical location, Tonga is prone to many natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, cyclones, volcanoes, and floods. Such disasters impact on modern communications as it destroys the necessary infrastructure to maintain it. It would take some months before modern communication can be used again by the population. However, people want to contact their friends and families during emergencies, as well as government and specialist assistance. While islands with larger populations have the infrastructure to communicate with its population and to other larger islands, smaller islands that may be further away from the main towns may have trouble contacting the larger emergency communications network in Tonga. With this scenario, the islands of Tonga have been impacted due to the eruption of the Tonga volcano, creating a tsunami that devastated the majority of the infrastructure constructed on the islands surrounding the volcano. We have been tasked to establish a method or mechanism to develop communication between the islands and villages in an attempt to enable temporary communication between family members and emergency services immediately after a disaster until communication infrastructure is established again.
Our team is proposing a multi-tiered method for the different communication ranges. These levels involve an intra-village stage, where the village emergency committee will still function as normal, but with an added representative responsible for managing communications between villages. The second level is the inter-village stage. This stage involves the communication between the villages on the medium to large islands. The final stage is inter-island, this being communication across islands with the larger islands. Tongatapu, Bavau, and Ha'apai will serve as the central hubs for the southern, northern, and central regions, respectively. To initially develop this method, an action similar to a government policy will be established in which a group of individuals from each stage are recruited and trained in performing each required task efficiently and effectively. These trainings are structured in a way that anyone from different social, economic, and educational backgrounds can easily understand. Immediately after the disaster, a volunteer from each island becomes the messenger between their small home island to a larger island where they can gather important information and contact emergency services.
The intra-village stage simply involves selecting a representative figure in each village which will receive information from either another stage in the method or through an external source. This individual will relay the information to their village, thus enabling a level of communication within the villages. The inter-village stage is similar to the inter-island stage, in which an individual or individuals will travel from the dominant village or village with reliable information on the island, and spread information to the other smaller villages. This will then be passed on to the intra-village stage, in which everyone in the immediate area will be notified of the situation. If they are cut off from these villages due to the disaster, for example floods blocking the path to the other villages, emergency shelters in each village will have a VHF radio, where villages within the island can communicate with one another. Even small islands who are within the VHF radio radius can effectively communicate with surrounding island communities. However, if the radio is out of radius from its designated receiver, individuals can contact the furthest practical emergency shelter, which can relay the information or alternatively forward it again until it reaches its destination.
The inter-island stage involves a volunteer team of individuals with ownership of a boat or satisfactory experience to operate a government-owned vehicle to travel to the nearby islands of one of the hubs in the 3 primary regions. These individuals will have received information from the intra-village stage and are responsible for relaying it to the smaller islands, with no established communication or information with the larger islands. This also works the other way, where individuals from smaller islands can travel to larger islands to gather further instructions from Nemo. The information can be transferred from one person to another, verbally, either in person or through voice recording, or written notes using pencil and waterproof paper. Each volunteer will receive training as well as kits that include the different communication methods and a tracker for the government to keep an eye on different ad hoc communication lines. By utilizing the power of the community, we created MSRCP, the multi-stage relay communication platform. With this, we are aiming for cheap and effective communication in the absence of modern communication infrastructure after natural disasters happen.
Meet Carrie, a 12-year-old girl living with her mother, father, and 2 brothers in Nukuleka, a small fishing village. One Saturday afternoon, the family was waiting for the father to return to work when a sonic boom, created by a volcanic eruption, shook their house. Carrie ran outside to see the ocean receding from the village, and having practiced evacuation drills and Nemo awareness training at school, she recognized the having left most of their belongings behind. Carrie and her family watched as an unstoppable force of water swept through their village, destroying houses, water supplies, internet, and power lines. As they watched the natural disaster unfold, Carrie and her family became increasingly anxious and stressed about their father, as they did not know his location or condition, and without receptions, their mobile phones were rendered useless. The pain is created by the lack of information about their father's well-being and whereabouts, but also their helplessness and inability to contact him. Consequently, Carrie and her family are left anxious and insecure for hours or even days, a very traumatizing experience. With all forms of telecommunication destroyed by the tsunami, GPS and satellite phones blocked by the ash cloud from the volcanic eruption, there exists no mode of passing information between evacuation sites. Similarly, people who do not have time to get to an evacuation point are isolated on rooftops, in churches or schools, left without any knowledge of the threat they face or the security of their loved ones. We, Team SBS, have devised an innovative hack to restore communication networks across Tonga, to not only provide individuals with critical updates, but to instantaneously reconnect families and provide the security and relief they need to stay strong. Our solution, BlueNet, will drastically improve not only the resilience of cities and increase the chance of saving lives, but by keeping communication channels online, will fasten the recovery process. BlueNet is a mesh network created by the transfer of information between individuals. Inspired by viruses and the spread of diseases in the recent COVID pandemic, Blue Network creates a semi-online network that grows and resyncs information as people join evacuation sites or travel between them. Coupled with the BlueNet technology, we have designed a satellite-like weather balloon that can connect all of the evacuation sites. The weather balloon will act as a relay, receiving information from the evacuation sites that will be equipped with directional low-frequency radios. Positioned beneath the ash cloud, the balloon will be visible to the personnel in charge of the evacuation. Simply by pointing the directional radios towards the balloon, their site will instantly sync up to other sites, providing a low-latency mode of communication to relay text messages between the sites. When the civilians reach evacuation sites, all of the data they have collected from passing other individuals will sync up to everyone at the camp. Additionally, rescuers will sync up to people isolated from the evacuation sites, and those unable to transfer their own information and status, if injured or otherwise, will be linked by other people using BlueNet to provide an exponentially growing database of individuals' last location, health status, and other messages they add. BlueNet is an application that users install on their mobile devices. By entering their information and status in a simple form, the application will then use Bluetooth capabilities that all modern phones possess to send information to anyone with the application within a 10 to 30 meter radius. The application maintains a local database on each device that synchronizes with other devices so everyone can carry up-to-date information. It is semi-online as the network connection is dependent on the traffic of people outside evacuation sites. While at evacuation sites, the application transforms into a traditional messaging platform that individuals can utilize to create plans with other family members on the network. Now, once Carrie reaches the evacuation site, she is able to contact friends and family members that are scattered between other sites, providing instant relief and a sense of security. And Carrie's father, who after being injured and unable to reach an evacuation site, is instantly notified of his family's safety as he is reached by a rescuer. But BlueNet can do more. The internet does not go down instantaneously. In fact, before communication is lost, there is a window of time in which the application can use GPS to sync the last known location of the populace to BlueNet, as well as provide emergency response information from government agencies over the internet to civilians. The application can act as its own warning system to alert civilians of the potential disaster, significantly increasing the time to prepare themselves and evacuate to a safe zone where they will be able to contact family members. This preempted data sync can provide emergency personnel with search locations and improves their ability to quickly reach and locate people. The evacuation and displacement of people from their homes is nearly unparalleled in its ability to induce stress in those affected. With no extra equipment needed for Tongan residents to carry when they're evacuating, BlueNet is so beneficial as mobile devices are by nature portable and likely to be in close proximity to the people at the time of the disaster, meaning no need to search for proprietary devices. Not only this, but the application works with existing behaviors as it is designed to follow a messaging service with traditional notifications and alerts. With your support, this project can become a reality. Together, we can reconnect families and loved ones. We can save lives. Join us. Join BlueNet.
The Tonga Islands have struggled to recover in the aftermath of natural disasters. In the forefront is the uncertainty and the stress felt by its citizens during and post-catastrophe due to inadequate, irregular, and often unavailable key communication channels. Without reliable systems of contact, villagers are disconnected from outgoing updates surrounding the developing disaster and support made available by the Village Emergency Committee.
Earthquakes and tsunamis can damage communication infrastructure across the island's surface, causing conventional networks to become inaccessible. Fixed communication infrastructure, such as cellular towers and underground cables, are vulnerable to the damages caused by seismic waves. Satellite bases, whilst useful prior to emergencies, often have little to no functionality during and post-emergencies due to ash cloud coverage, rugged terrain, and extreme heat, which interferes with its connectivity. Moreover, the financial investment required to build and maintain such infrastructure can be exorbitant, often forcing developing communities to sink deeper into debt. Commonly used wireless systems are operated by third parties and not familiar to the local citizenry. During a natural disaster, the ongoing power outages limit the Village Emergency Committee's ability to establish a stable line of contact and coordinate assistance and recovery efforts with those most affected on the ground. As illustrated, various causes contribute to the underperformance and underutilization of effective communication channels post-disaster, including susceptibility to breakdown under harsh environmental conditions, interactive functions, and willingness of the entire community to partake in the network.
Our team Relay would like to introduce our solution, Self-Generative Radio or SGR. SGR is a simple but effective communication system consisting of citizen band or CB radio devices, where one radio device is assigned per village. As a result, villagers can use the SGR when communicating with other villages, spreading information faster. These devices can be powered multiple ways: a hand crank if electricity access is low, removable batteries, or a micro USB charging port that can store power. SGR can reach other radio devices up to 20 kilometers away, but can be extended to more than 40 kilometers by installing antenna extensions. While this equipment may be fragile during disasters, it can be widely installed across the island due to its low cost of about $15 per unit. The SGR is unique in its simplicity. It does not require large infrastructures to be built and uses devices similar to mobile phones, which allow its users to quickly adapt to its form and function. Other brainstormed ideas like signaling systems and auditory warning signals do not allow verbal messages to be communicated and are not as effective during disasters. SGR does not rely on network cables and satellites, which may not function due to disaster byproducts as mentioned previously. SGR's deployment can be streamlined with the help of organizations like the National Emergency Management Office of Tonga and Emergency Telecommunications Cluster. When there are no disaster events, these groups and organizations can rehearse evacuation procedures and how to use the SGR. The SGR tackles Sustainable Development Goal, or SDG 9, in improving communication for Tongan citizens, as well as between Tonga and other agencies, like the Village Emergency Committee and international governments. It also addresses SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, which emphasizes the need for, quote, peaceful and inclusive societies, since SGR promotes greater levels of empathy and community, providing long-term benefits. SGR also addresses SDG 1, no poverty, by aiming to reduce disaster-related deaths and post-disaster damage, and SDG 7, since our solution can be powered using clean energy instead of coal or natural gases.
Despite the SGR's strength, it also poses some limitations. Since its reach is 20 kilometers, it does not provide much assistance due to the long range required for inter-island communication. Although we recognize this limitation, SGR addresses the main concerns for Tongan residents in reducing feelings of anxiety and uncertainty that arise during disasters from weak communication quickly. SGR also has the ability to be used in various communities and contexts, making it a flexible technology that can establish and maintain robust communication for disaster-affected peoples. Thank you for listening.
8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff.
Oftentimes there are concepts in this world taken at first value, and education is at the forefront of that group. To educate does not just mean to pass on knowledge of how to spell or how to do long division. To educate is to inspire, to build lifelong bonds, to ignite creativity. Education is the boring familiar, the constant that carries on through life regardless of the exact shape of its presence. When it is cut off, the abnormality is palpable, such as in the case of a natural disaster. On the 15th of January, an undersea volcano off the coast of Tonga erupted in a massive explosion, sending ash plumes 30 kilometers into the sky and triggering a series of tsunami waves across the Tongan archipelago. The explosion, which occurred about 65 kilometers north of Tonga's capital, cut communication to the country for several days. Authorities estimated that 84% of Tonga's total population of 106,000 had been affected by the disaster. As of January 28th, 293 houses had been damaged and 1,525 people displaced. They could not find perfectly clean water to drink, much infrastructure to take shelter in, and all communication around them had collapsed. For a brief while, the abnormality reigns, eating away at your mental state, slowly but surely affecting the way you live. And it's hardest on the children. When all semblance of normal life falls apart, development can slow down, and emotions run rampant. The question now becomes, how might we educate the children under the age of 14 of Tonga to effectively recover from a natural disaster?
At Blue Brain, we intend to create human-centered solutions against disasters. Our solution is to conduct an educational program that uses native plantations to construct building blocks and furniture. The designs and materials are child-friendly, intended to be used by children to create temporary schools and learning environments. As they engage with these building blocks to create their vision, they can find themselves immersed in this hands-on activity. The program would encourage them to be as imaginative as possible, kindling their curious and creative spirit and improving their mental health and psychological stability in the process. Furthermore, these building blocks are designed and constructed by teachers, parents, and community leaders, allowing them to showcase their indigenous knowledge and culture that would then be passed on to the younger generations. As they come together to work on this project, leaning on each other to bring their vision to life, they can be reminded that even if they face disasters and tragedy, they can always rebuild it together.
The building blocks of these structures will consist of common flora such as banana trees, pandanus palms, and many other tropical plants, including ferns. The most common tree are coconut palms, which often accompany most people's view of a South Pacific paradise. They are grown in plantations throughout the islands of Tonga. Using materials that are familiar and found locally can help the community connect more with their culture and their heritage. On the eve of disaster, information regarding our solution can be disseminated as quickly as possible with the help of volunteers going to various regions to teach, explain, and show the way of our solution. These volunteers will travel from camp to camp, passing on this knowledge to the best of their ability. In times of peace, this information can be integrated seamlessly into the education curriculum, and the knowledge of it reinforced once every 3 months, like schools reinforce fire drills and intruder alarms. When disaster does strike, the community can be self-sufficient and can implement our solution entirely on their own. Education is not only technical, it is also emotional, mental, and deeply social. Our solution aims to address these at the forefront, and to solve a very human problem through a very human solution. Disasters may bring human civilization down to its knees, but the will to live and move forward is indomitable. We have engineered a way to rekindle this spark, restore resilience and hope, and push the community forward onto a solution that they can entirely own.
The Kingdom of Tonga is a Polynesian archipelago consisting of 169 inhabited and uninhabited islands. Located in the South Pacific Ocean on the junction of the Pacific and Indo-Australian tectonic plates, Tonga is ravaged by the adverse effects of natural disasters induced by both climate and non-climate change reasons. Communities of Tonga are no strangers to rising sea levels, earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions, the most recent of which being the Hunga Apai eruption and tsunami on January 15th this year.
With devastating effects on infrastructure and communities, swift and efficient recovery from these disasters is vital. Our focus in this challenge is the distinct issue of the disruptions to primary education in these post-disaster states. In accordance to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, our team sought to focus on the problem of how might we assist in the re-establishment of the link to education in post-disaster regions in Tonga, alongside increasing the psychological preparedness of primary level children regarding post-disaster traumatic experiences.
Our primary aim in this project is to develop a community-led system in collaboration with community leaders and experts from the area that can become self-sustaining over time.
We suggest a twofold approach tackling this overarching statement. The first, focusing on re-establishing the link to education, and the second, on psychological preparedness.
To mitigate the complete disruption to access to education and education facilities post-disaster, we propose an emergency education priority package. Inspired by emergency food rations and quick run bags, these educational kits will contain 3 primary components. The first are multiple quick-shot lesson outlines covering priority content determined by the appropriate education representatives at the beginning of each semester. The second is an accessible recap guide for effective coping mechanisms taught throughout the semester that can be utilised in post-disaster scenarios to assist in the mental well-being of children and their families. The third is a sheet of small activities that can be completed by the children as a grounding activity, focusing on simple tasks such as mind maps and mazes. These kits will be redistributed at the beginning of each new learning period with updated content for the new quarter in weatherproof pouches, and expand upon current multimodal education systems in place, providing the option for children to continue aspects of their education at home. This aims to minimise the effect of large education gaps in schools from the immediate post-disaster period when schooling and classes were inaccessible. These shorter lessons allow considerations for the reduced concentration ability of those in post-disaster states and increase accessibility for students who may be required to assist in cleanup processes.
The second component will focus on the introduction of short, simple techniques which assist in post-disaster trauma and psychology into the regular schooling curriculum. We wish to focus heavily on collaboration with Tongan community leaders, doctors, and experts to first identify areas and techniques that will be best suited to the communities and children, and then the actual implementation of these strategies into the curriculum. Integrating smaller and simpler ideas by trusted community leaders builds trust in the techniques and assists in normalizing the conversation of the importance of mental health. These techniques can be utilized not only by the children themselves, but by families and communities.
This focus on community is one which we wish to work alongside. Tongan culture places high value in community. An example is the premise of uloa, a premise which is emphasized by Tongan doctor Siona Vakar to be an important component to integrate into future mental health education. Collaboration with teachers, hospital and medical practitioners, psychological experts, natural healers, and other community leaders is vital to ensure the most appropriate methods are utilized in the curriculum, and effective trust in the integration of these new curriculum components is established and accepted by Tongan communities.
With regards to funding, we aim to seek financial support from education NGOs like the Childhood Education International, health NGOs such as the Tonga Mental Health and Disabilities Association, and international relief organisations such as Red R Australia. Stakeholders will include the government body by conversing with Emily Puvalu, who is the CEO of the Ministry of Education, Women Affairs and Culture in Tonga. In regards to pricing, schooling kits will be bought in bulk from locally sourced organisations to accommodate for around 20,000 primary age students for approximately $10 each.
With collaboration of community leaders, we aim for this system to become self-sustaining with the additional support of aid bodies for resources when required. With implementation of the systems, we hope to reduce the impact on primary education and the well-being of students and communities in these post-disaster states. This is MindMap.
The United Nations recognizes that access to quality education is a basic human right and an achievable goal in the Sustainable Development Plan launched in 2015. This is because quality education is the key to a better tomorrow. Access to a quality education means having qualified teachers, resources, and most importantly, a safe environment to absorb knowledge. This has been a struggle for the Kingdom of Tonga as their location along the Tonga Trench makes them susceptible to seismic activity causing earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Most recently, they experienced the Tonga Ha'apai eruption and resultant tsunami.
Leaving children with no access to power or internet for extended periods of time while their route to school and school infrastructures have been damaged, similar to Tuakase Latu situation in Iwa Island. Children have lost hundreds of hours of schooling due to the 2018 rebuild as a result of the cyclone Jida, then the effects of COVID-19, and now ongoing environmental disasters. Their key development is being delayed. Our plan addresses the infrastructure damages in the primary layer of the disruption, as after the roads have been cleared and the aftermath of the natural disasters, students do not have a safe place to go back to school. We are proposing the use of affordable, innovative material to strengthen school infrastructures in the rebuilding of primary and secondary education facilities in the long term. An economical way to resist ground forces is to lift the building's foundation above the earth. This method is called base isolation. For the foundation, we are suggesting using iron oxide covered steel reinforced concrete to prevent corrosion and also increase weldability and firmability.
For the building structure, we recommend sustainable bamboo reinforced concrete, as it is widely accessible in Pacific Islands with local knowledge on building techniques. Bamboo has greater tensile strength than steel and is lighter and more flexible. Due to its high bending and compressive ductility, it attracts reduced force in seismic event and dissipates a lot of energy from the quake, as it is able to shake and move, as seen in other global contexts exposed to earthquakes.
The interior part of the building is insulated using rigid foam to stop water from entering inside the classrooms when floods occur.
In preparation of the concrete, we are planning to use granulated rubber as a fine aggregate instead of sand, with potential to also add zycosoil, oxide nanoparticles and carbon nanotubes as admixtures, which are all readily accessible and cheap. These admixtures enhance properties like fatigue life, compaction, mechanical durability, crack prevention, compressive strength, and abrasion resistance. Additionally, using the granulated rubber as a fine aggregate in concrete removes reliance on potable water compared to the existing use of unwashed beach sand, which causes corrosion in steel reinforcement, weakening the buildings.
The secondary layer of the disruption our plan synonymously addresses is the psychological effects of the disaster, as through this plan we are providing children with the assurance of attending a safer school without worrying about survival, and parents with comfort that their child is being sent to a safe environment.
Additionally, this proposal provides avenues of economic longevity, as the new schools would need to be built by local and international constructors, maintained and further developed. As a result, more jobs will be available near the school.
On January 15, 2022, the Kingdom of Tonga, a country consisting of 169 islands situated in the southern Pacific Ocean, experienced the most powerful eruption since the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883, resulting in tsunamis and producing large amounts of ash flumes and causing devastating weather conditions. Many residences were destroyed and covered in volcanic ash. Infrastructure, such as education facilities, are severely damaged due to the lack of safety features and infrastructure assessments. Over 84,000 people have been seriously affected from this devastating disaster. However, with a literacy rate of 99.41% in the country, to pursue the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, Theme 4 of quality education, We, Team Edutarians, believe it is vital to provide sustainable, quality education. Fundamental to our solution is providing a framework to motivate students to pursue education. This is achieved through teaching about the positive impacts of an education on their lives, such as providing more opportunities, improving their livelihood, and increasing autonomy. These learnings would empower students to be passionate about their education and help address the psychological impact of major hardships on learning motivation. Additionally, the community, including parents and teachers, would be taught about this framework to allow students to gain motivation from their community. Adult members of the community, such as parents, would be trained to teach and conduct classes in times of crises when students cannot access their school. This would be through volunteers that would train members in site-specific areas, and lessons would occur in accessible locations throughout the community when access to school is restricted. This overcomes limitations in education only being accessed through teachers, the lack of internet, and the restriction of free education to children over 14 years old. This supports the community in a holistic way by instilling values of education and creating the foundation for a sustainable education system. Another key aspect of this solution is to increase the awareness in Tonga of the land's material properties and its usage and durability in infrastructure. Soil in Tonga mainly consists of limestone and volcanic tuffs, which are a precious resource for concrete and other structural composite material. Concrete made to proper standards with the correct ratios and reinforcement materials can last up to 1,000 years and is able to withstand catastrophic loading. 5 Steps to Safer Buildings is a guideline produced by the World Bank in cooperation with the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery to increase the resilience in Pacific schools. By encouraging adherence to these guidelines, we hope the people of Tonga thrive and establish their own structural code systems to manage natural disasters. Where possible, local materials should be used to enable the community to maintain and repair infrastructure, while ensuring it is still affordable and accessible. Here, we demonstrate the possible application of these 5 steps, alongside other improvements in the pursuit of improved access to education infrastructure. Built predominantly out of concrete, which is accessible in Tonga and can bear high loads, the shelter aims to withstand natural disasters and provide a safe learning space for education during the recovery period. Large windows are included for natural light, and solar panels on the roof provide an alternative electricity source. Both are equipped with shutters to protect them during adverse weather events. Inside, learning resources are protected in waterproof storage, and large furniture can be tied down to internal anchor points. There are also creative spaces for students to engage with, aiming to foster a sense of both physical and psychological safety. Our solution is actioned through partnerships with the UN SDG, the World Bank, and Red R. This enables a crisis response to provide people to teach communities about our educational framework and work with the community to plan lessons without access to schools. Humanitarian aid workers are also critical to teach the community about our shelters and thus enable access to safer spaces. Our solution is designed to be sustainable and holistic, aiming to instill educational values and create supportive learning environments. It interacts with the complex nature of this issue by addressing both psychological and physical learning needs. We, the Edutarians, believe this is the key in our mission to provide sustainable, quality education.
We are Team C5 Eduvate. We aim to provide a more economical, environmentally sustainable approach to meeting the SDG Goal 4 to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education. Our focus is on the island nation of Tonga, located within the Pacific region. It consists of 170 islands, which contain a population of just over 100,000, most of which is located on the main 3 islands. The Kingdom of Tonga faces many challenges from frequent natural disasters and the long-term impact of climate change that pose serious threats to the quality of Tongan education. We have engineered a solution that could reduce the disruption to schooling in Tonga following natural disasters. The recent eruption and resultant tsunami have devastated multiple islands and left many areas of life in need of urgent assistance, including schooling. We have developed a solution to aid the cleanup and address the issue of disruption to schooling through our solution. To do this, we have considered environmental and sustainability goals in development, including maximum use of local resources to reduce costs and ensure practicality. Our solution also ensures that all groups observe a positive outcome, considering the impact on vulnerable segments of the population. Our solution is coconut paper. This is made using the fibers of either the husk or internal meat of the coconut to produce a paper product that can provide students with the writing materials that they need for school without needing to rely on imports. Coconut paper utilizes the resources of the Tongan kingdom and leverages pre-existing assets and artisanal manufacturing systems to quickly and efficiently generate schooling materials needed to get students back to school as soon as possible. Coconut paper uses coconut waste products produced from the Tongan coconut industry and combine them with water and waste paper. This paste is then formed on a sheet via a screening frame, then exposed to the sun to produce coconut paper sheets that can replace or supplement notebooks. Potential uses of coconut paper could additionally include supplemental menstrual hygiene management resources that would be available right after the natural disaster, reducing the reliance on shipments by women. By modifying the paper, the percentage of coconut paper fiber used, and the waste paper in the mix, the paper can even have different textures and properties that can assist in special need cases, such as providing greater contrast for vision impairment or tactile feedback for other disability cases. Our solution helps limit delays in restarting education after a disaster by shifting to localized production of paper, one of the key resources needed in schools. In terms of the layers of disruption, coconut paper does not require complex infrastructure to produce and can be done cheaply with resources that come from the agriculture sector. We have also created a prototype sheet of paper shown in the flowchart. This will help reduce delays, potential mental health issues through the earlier restarting of school, saving precious time that would be otherwise wasted waiting for imported goods. Additionally, our solution boosts equity among Tongan islands by empowering outer island communities to not rely on the main islands to transfer resources to them. The reduced reliance on imports also limits the risk of COVID outbreaks by allowing waste products and that are produced on farms to be repurposed for education. An incentive scheme may also be developed whereby government or NGOs purchase paper from farming communities to provide an additional source of income for farmers. This ultimately reduces the financial burden posed on students to continue their education after a natural disaster from these communities. We plan for our solution to be implemented by organizations such as WIDR by providing basic training with culturally and linguistically accurate instructions that empower communities in the Kingdom of Tonga to produce coconut paper themselves, even after the disaster recovery is over. We would like to thank the judges for listening and the Humanitarian Innovation Hackathon for giving us this opportunity. This has been Team C5 Eduvate.
Hello everyone, we are Team C6 with team members Aaron Smith, Yue Huang, Hao Wei Yu, and Kevin Liu. Our team name is Heart to Heart, and our topic is education. Firstly, let's have a look at some statistics about the Tonga education system.
Tonga children received compulsory education before the end of high school. 98% of Tonga students attended school, where the other 2% are living in remote area without a specific school, such as the Navi group, or they don't have enough fees to pay for admission.
After the eruption of Tonga volcano, students' learning environment has been affected to a certain extent, and we believe this is an urgent problem to be solved, as similar situations could happen again in the future. Due to Tonga's high volcanic and low coral forms, it gives these islands a unique character. Some volcanoes are still active and can erupt periodically. Moreover, cyclones in Tonga also occur commonly, on average 1.3 times per year. Thus, our group aimed to come up with a solution that can be used in the future and in a sustainable way. Some factors we need to consider are the communication between the main island and the outer islands. And as Tonga is a developing country, so not every student have access to good quality internet. And immediately after the volcano eruption, students shouldn't go out due to if they breathe in the ashes, it's not good for their health. Thus, our solution includes a few stages. After the eruption of Tonga volcano, students' learning environment has been affected to a certain extent. And we believe this is an urgent problem to be solved, as similar situations could happen again in the future. Due to Tonga's high volcanic we can divide our solution into two stages. For stage 1 is before the reconstruction of the school facilities, and this stage can be divided into two parts. For the first part is immediately after the volcanic eruption. For the safety of the students, they should stay at home. While they stay at home, we'll implement a system called radio schooling. With this system, we'll use MP3 to record the class content and deliver these MP3s to the students and ensure they can continue schooling immediately after the volcanic eruption. Part 2 of stage 1 is after it's safe to go out, they can go to a gathering place, such as church, and stay there for temporary schooling. Stage 2 of our solution, more in the long term, is the design of easy-to-construct school buildings. This will be explained in detail later.
Tonga's country has many villages and towns in remote areas, so their school hardware and software are not good. Students there can't use TV or other video media equipment, or even have no network, so we designed to use small solar panel radios for classes so that all children can learn. This is a suboptimal choice, so it only applies to the first few days after the volcanic eruption.
The schools may be far away and so be hard to travel to. So using places that are in every town, such as a church, especially if they have a hall or a foyer right next to the church, can be used to make travel to educational places easier. Lessons could be broadcast by TV or radio signal, and a supervising adult could be in each smaller place, such as a church in a local village. And they don't have to be necessarily trained as a teacher, since the teacher will be broadcasting from a public school that might be a bit further away. And this also, I guess, could be done in collaboration with a TV network in Tonga as well. Buildings are destroyed by strong wind and cyclone events, and these get worse all the time, and it happen all the time in Tonga. So instead of making a building that might get destroyed in the future when winds might get stronger and harder, making a building that can be destructed and then reconstructed in not much time might be a better way to ensure education is continuing.
So this is a design of our easy-to-reconstruct school building. For the roof, the structure used for the roof is bamboo, and with nails such as sort of like a plant or grass, because these materials are cheap and are local. And for the wall, material used for the wall are cladding and white soil, and when tsunami hits, we'll unfold the base of the building as it's showing in the picture and unfold the walls, and then just put them on the ground, and this ensures less damage of the tsunami. Thank you.
Islands in Pacific regions are often exposed to natural disasters such as cyclones, earthquakes, and volcanoes, with no mercy on Tonga. The recent volcano explosion has impacted the environment, massively affecting the air quality and water. We have received a letter from Fatula, a 10-year-old boy who lives in the rural area of Tonga with a family of 9. Currently, he is suffering to collect clean water as the ash made the water undrinkable for some of his family, and his lack of safety in accessing water remains a concern for him and his community. After reviewing the situation in Tonga, along with the problem that Fatula has brought to us, we have identified that these are the challenges we will be tackling. How might we provide a local, sustainable, and high-volume water resource at a community level, whilst at the same time making sure children like Fatula can access this water safely? Our team, Selburn, aims to participate and provide sustainable products and services that will make a change. Hence, we would like to introduce our product, Big Friendly Coconut, or known as BFC. The method of BFC is that the rainwater seeps into the ground and passes through a sand filter, which will separate most of the ash from the water, therefore depositing clean and low turbidity water in an underground water tank that is positioned underneath the sand filter. So when a person wants to extract water from the underground tank, they use an elliptical pump. The pump will suck the water from the tank through the pipe that is inside of the trunk of the tree and into carryable containers shaped like coconuts that sit at the top of the trunk of the coconut tree. The person can then take the carryable containers full of water from the tree and drink cleaner water. In reality, our design is similar to a tap that supplies water, but with some nuances. The water source is only from rain and stormwater runoff, and the whole design doesn't rely on electrical energy, just relies on a person's steps and movements. So you might ask yourself, why did we use a palm tree, or why did we place a tank underground? Well, the answer is resilience to cyclones and tsunamis. Coconut trees do not fall during a cyclone due to their flexible trunk and long leaves. Even if the coconut trees are destroyed by a natural disaster, you at least have clean, drinkable water underground from the underground tank. Team Selburn aims to source local materials. So, for example, coconut trees, trunk and leaves, they're the exterior of the design, and they are actually from the actual coconut trees and leaves themselves. Other things such as a sand filter, the sand is extracted from the coast of Tonga, and the elliptical pump is manufactured from the timber manufacturers that is located in Tonga as well. The only materials that would need to be imported, because Tonga doesn't have all the manufacturing and resources to make them, are metal pipes, underground water tanks, and plastic carryable containers if they do not have them already. Therefore, according to Wendy, our commerce student, she calculated that the cost of the whole process, the initial cost is $500 and the maintenance cost is $500 per year, and that is to produce more than 17 litres per minute of water for just one of these coconut tree water extractors. So therefore, we're going to place multiple ones of them around Tonga, and the initial placement of them will be in the three main islands, which is Mango, Fonowifwa, and Namuka. And within these islands, we place it close to primary schools and churches. Why? Schools and churches are located in the centre of communities, so access to it is easier for most people. Also, schools and churches are associated with safety, so we believe that extracting water in those areas will be safer to do so than 1 kilometre away from a school. With 205 rainy days in the year in Tonga, we expect the BFC solution is able to collect and purify 17 litres of water per minute with only a maximum of $8,000 per station, which satisfies the 812,000 litres of water needed for all households in Tonga fortnightly. Now let's go back and visit Fortula again. He's now happy with not having to walk a long distance and feeling scared at night to clean water. Instead, he can now collect the water within 50 metres away from his house. He also developed some friendship and bonded with some other members in the community. Our BFC solution tackles SDG 6 of clean water and also meets SDG 9 and 11 and 13, as our solution uses coconut trees to support the climate action, building infrastructure, and bringing the community together from sharing the communal water station.
The Kingdom of Tonga is an archipelago of 169 islands. The population of 100,000 live on 36 of these. The Tongan economy relies heavily on remittances from Tongans who live abroad, with a limited manufacturing sector and the majority of employment provided by agriculture and forestry.
Tonga life is largely influenced by a combination of tradition and faith, with a history dating back thousands of years and a strong missionary presence. In the capital of Nuku'alofa, the infrastructure is far more developed in rural regions and outlying islands. This is especially noticeable in how Tongans obtain their water. Rainwater is often the only source for rural households.
This brings us to the volcanic eruption of Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apa in early 2022. The volcanic ash fallout and resulting tsunami threatened to adversely affect the water supplies that many Tongans rely on. Volcanic ash causes water turbidity to increase and can make the water taste metallic or bitter, with the potential of toxic particles causing serious health problems. With the majority of rural water coming from the roof and often stored in open tanks, settled ash is washed into the water supply and contaminates it.
We here as Alama Aqua, the Latin for nourishing water, aim to help the communities of Tonga reclaim their water health by filtering out the volcanic ash.
Introducing Power Pots, our own ceramic water filters. Made of a composition of locally sourced clay and easily obtained sawdust, the mixture is molded into the shape of a pot and fired in a kiln. With a simple addition of sawdust into the ceramic clay mixture, we can turn this inconspicuous flower pot into an effective water filtration device. This idea has been implemented in various other countries to great effect, including Cambodia, Mexico, and Vietnam by Engineers Without Borders and other NGOs. Our prototype shown here is simple, elegant, and effective. We reuse old plastic drums as the water storage containers underneath our pots, allowing water filtration to occur throughout the day and overnight.
Our solution will involve the generation of a working economy between the more rural villages of Tonga and the city centre. Instead of one-off humanitarian aid, power pots aim to generate a long-lasting impact on Tongan society, allowing all Tongans to collaborate and reap the benefits. Whilst the spread of volcanic ash across the island presents a major humanitarian problem, it also uniquely provides Tonga with an opportunity. The large quantities of volcanic ash can serve two main functions. 1. Volcanic ash can act as a fertilizer for Tonga's largely agricultural society, and 2. It also addresses raw material shortages for construction in Tonga, as volcanic ash serves as a sturdy material for building bricks to ward off any other future disasters. The number of people living rurally in Tonga is almost double the number living in city centres. The city centres provide the industrial capabilities of building clay pots en masse, and the rural villages provide the more labour-intensive job of collecting the ash from large areas. For transportation of ceramic filters and ash, we will take advantage of currently existing dirt roads connecting the rural parts of Tonga. This will provide employment opportunities to Tongans from both rural and urban areas. However, in order to upscale the industrial capabilities required to build these ceramic pots en masse, we need you. Australia shares a close tie with the people of Tonga. As much as 10% of the Tongan population live in Australia, and due to the volcanic eruption, much of the communication that normally happens between Australia and Tonga have been shut down. Donate the Pot Foundation aims to bridge this gap, where your donation can help provide the tools and expertise required for Tonga to set up the infrastructure required for sustainable production of these pots.
Due to the local sourcing of recyclable manufacturing materials, our pots are cheap to manufacture and implement, requiring only seconds to assemble. We want to see PowerPoint in your most every rural Tonga household over the next 2 years at a rate of 100 pots a day.
We propose that the initial enterprise of converting local kilns from artistic endeavours to providing a water filtration solution will be undertaken through governmental cooperation and humanitarian organisations to help with the changeover costs and efforts. This is supplemented by a donation campaign that specifically aims to directly provide local support through international means. In the long term, the distribution and replacement of power pots will be a new Tongan industry, providing jobs to the local economy for the future. We at Alma Aqua aim to use power pots to address not just the immediate problem of volcanic ash contamination, but also the ongoing problems facing Tonga's economy. Our pots filter out the volcanic ash, making household rainwater safe to drink. Setting up our proposed economic pipeline, with ash being returned to the kilns where we make our pots, will empower all citizens of Tonga to continue to build and strengthen infrastructure in Tonga beyond the current crisis. Powerful social change requires a power pot.
In the early days after a natural disaster, allocating and triaging limited resources and keeping locals informed of developments are essential to providing practical aid and public health response. Solutions that aid decision-making at the individual, community, organizational, and national levels will help save costs, lives, livelihoods, and the local economy. Malo elele. We are Team E1 in the 2022 Humanitarian Innovation Hackathon. The issue we are tackling is the effect of volcanic ash on the health and well-being of residents and humanitarian workers in Tonga. In January this year, the Tonga Ha'apai volcano erupted, spewing tons of dangerous volcanic ash and gas into the air. In the hours and days following the eruption, volcanic ash fell on the Tongan islands to a depth of up to 2 centimeters. Small ash particles and volcanic gases made the air toxic, causing many chronic and acute health complications. We need to minimize residents' exposure to crystalline silica and sulfur dioxide, provide adequate and timely treatment to those affected, and ensure resources and aid are allocated to areas that need it most. Our solution to mitigate this issue is to monitor volcanic ash and gas levels in the ambient air around the Tongan Islands, giving the government, international aid, emergency response organizations, communities, and residents the information they need to keep everyone safe.
We plan to implement pre-existing, small-scale, low-cost, static air pollution monitoring technology all throughout the Tongan Islands. Using laser spectroscopy and the light scattering principle, these sensors can detect the concentration of particulate matter in air as small as 0.3 microns, providing accurate, real-time, and potentially life-saving air quality data for each community. We propose installing these sensors in local weather stations located at the various airports as seen in this map, since weather stations already have the software and hardware capabilities to collect, store, and distribute data. Any particulate matter present will flow into the sensor, and the information will be wirelessly relayed to the weather station's database, stored and ready for distribution. But how will this data be communicated to the people of Tonga?
The air quality information will be passed on to the community by a top-down approach. The Ministry of Health will inform the community of the air quality in the next press conference addressing the nation. This information is to be used by radio stations, newspapers, and social media news to further spread the reach of the information to the public from a wide demographic and ability. Simultaneously, information is passed to the district officer, who passes it down to the village officers to disseminate the information to the people more directly. A simple system of a danger scale consisting of low, moderate, high, very high, and extreme is to be used. Based on the current level, the Ministry of Health will give advice and directives on what to do.
Monitoring silica concentrations in several areas allows local government and humanitarian groups such as Red R to communicate risks to residents and allocate resources according to the community health needs to assist recovery efforts. It was noted immediately following the eruption that Tonga required an urgent delivery of masks for protection from COVID-19 and RCS. Given the implications and restrictions of foreign aid due to ash and debris from the subsequent tsunami, masks, medical staff, respirators and medicine need to be allocated to the areas where RCS is most likely to cause health complications. The facilitation and collation of air quality data will greatly assist in triaging areas most at risk and in educating the general public through a series of directives as to the appropriate next steps. In this year's disaster, communication was initially through the town offices, and then in March, due to COVID-19 related delays, there was a targeted approach where specific NGOs will visit the affected communities in person to assess further. These NGOs worked closely with government to ensure they passed on critical messages and essential services, with the vulnerable, such as the elderly, made priority in reaching them. Despite many Tongans being fluent in both Tongan and English, it is also valuable to note that using easy English was the best way to communicate quick and clear directives to the people of Tonga. They need to be told explicitly and what the expectations and non-negotiables are, and the easy English format does exactly that. Effort to rebuild is a prime opportunity to set a new course towards a 21st century reality that is safer, smarter, and more robust and more investment friendly for Tongans and the rest of the Pacific region. Tonga is prone to earthquakes, tsunamis, cyclones, and floods. This is partly due to its location in the seismologically active Pacific Ring of Fire, being geographically remote and low-lying. After all, their ancestors were extraordinary navigators who voyaged across thousands of kilometres of open ocean millennia ago, braving the most hostile conditions to establish a civilization in the heart of the Pacific. Those ancestors seeded a culture of faith, communal values, and a pragmatic approach to the crisis. It will not be easy, but with new knowledge, technology, and international networks underpinned by the Tongan's legendary resolve, it is possible. A resilient people deserve a resilient land.
Volcanic eruptions in Tonga have left ash particles that pose breathing hazards like asthma and chronic bronchitis. Our aim is to limit inhalation of this ash. However, we did not approach this as a purely technical issue. What do you do when a crisis strikes? Panic? Run? Drink tea? Studies show that 68% of people's first reactions to disaster is disorientation. Most people lack knowledge on what steps to follow next to keep themselves safe. Moreover, communication routes and supply lines cut off in such emergencies, making first responses insufficient. Identifying lack of social awareness and medical equipment to deal with the unpredictable volcanic ash situation as a root cause of the problem, we devised an SOS-X kit. And that confusion is exactly what we hope the survival kit will clear up. Equipped with 9 N95 masks, DIY window filters and goggles with a handy QR code to instruct, the kit will not only equip underprepared Tongans for better air quality in midst of toxic ash fumes, but will also spread awareness in the Tongan community of all relief measures. Masks seem like a no-brainer, yet masks have only yet been popularized by COVID. Moreover, people don't realize how much of a difference wearing a mask can make. 98% of particulate matter can be blocked by N95 masks, and by including it in our kits, we hope to popularize its usage. Goggles are another ignored yet important first response item to prevent eye infections and irritations that might not be readily available. The last item is a one-size-fits-all window filter. So the material we have chosen is plastic, and we have several very compelling reasons. The first is that Tonga has a high buildup of plastic waste in their landfills that's building up at an alarming rate. Usage of this recycled waste material will not only be eco-friendly, but also cheap material choice.
Plastic filters have been shown to have high strength durability, which makes it a sustainable solution, and high chemical inertia, which will not react with acidic volcanic ash. Production of filters domestically will make sure production continues even when supply routes are cut off and will generate jobs for many on Iceland. So keeping in mind that different houses have different designs, we've tweaked the window filter to fit windows of all shapes and sizes. Incorrect sizes can lead to leakages, rendering the filters in the center useless. The kit contains magnetic panes which has adhesive that can be peeled off on one side and then attached to the wall. The filter has magnetic ends that attract and stick onto the magnetic panes, ensuring a perfect fit. Moreover, the filter is foldable and fits compactly into a kit box. Now, while all these materials solve the problem of inadequate resource management during the crisis, we've chosen to include QR code to give comprehensive instruction of how to utilize this kit box to its maximum potential. To give instructions in a period with limited communication and moderate isolation, pre-recorded videos accessed via QR codes on each item in the kit are ideal as it does not require internet. As internet coverage without crisis is only 41% and explains the Tongan language without required reading. Further advertising can be done through social media, which is popular amongst young Tongans. Calculating the total cost, each kit comes up to 89 Australian dollars. However, this simple solution spans 5 different SDGs. We hope that this kit helps mitigate damage control and it is as educational to Tongans as it was for us to research it.